Hi everyone, this is the first Hacker Hot Shots of 2021 and we're really excited to start this year with our first Hacker Hot Shot, who is Christopher Ellison, and he's with Flashpoint Intel and he is the Director of Intelligence, and he's going to be talking to us today and also giving us a presentation about ransomware, especially keeping up. The title is Ransomware, Keeping Up with Extortion Techniques, which is a fascinating subject. And the best person to talk about this is the man himself. Christopher, thanks so much for joining.
Henry, thank you so much for having me today.
Cool, excellent. Cool, so do you want to jump on your slides and I'll let you know when we can see them on the screen.
All right, let me share them right now.
Looking good, fantastic. Go for it.
Perfect. Hey everyone. Again, Henry, thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to be here, being the first one for 2021. So for today, we're going to discuss ransomware, keeping up with extortion techniques. So just to keep everything in perspective, the goal of this talk is to provide everybody here today an insight into the different changes that has been employed by ransomware threat actor groups when it comes to mostly Tor sites. So if you get infected by ransomware, there's a timer. It would tell the victim or Monero or Dash or whatever cryptocurrency the threat actor groups are using. And the ransom amount, it's as low as, I think the lowest I've seen is around $200 in Bitcoin equivalent, and it can go up to $5,000. And most of the time, there's no negotiation. You look at the Tor site, time is running down. If you don't pay in 2 or 3 days, the ransom doubles or triples. Now they shifted to targeted, wherein the difference is when it comes to infection vectors, instead of just your regular spam, mostly it's a spear phishing, RDPs, vulnerabilities. They even have stolen credentials that they can use to log into a system and then implant their ransomware there. And also partner compromise. So your organization might have the best security posture or best of breed security products, but then you have partners that connects to your network that are not really minding their own security posture. So that poses a danger to a target organization. So those are some of the infection vectors that are being used by targeted ransomware. And the ransom communications, some of them still use Tor site, but most of the time it's email communications. They use email addresses that are disposable. They open it up for that specific target, and they use email services that are considered to be secure and that are not hosted in the US. And the ransom, that's where it goes upwards to millions of dollars. So this is what we've seen so far in 2021 when it comes to the shift from opportunistic to targeted ransomware attacks. So one question comes to mind, right? Why the shift? Number one, there are fewer victims to manage, bigger payday, and of course, discrete communication. And with discrete communication, it's less likely to have their campaign exposed. So if we discuss the first one, fewer victims to manage, right? Imagine if it's an opportunistic attack and you're able to infect, or the threat actor groups are able to infect, let's say 1,000 victims, right? That's 1,000 victims. You need to manage $300 each, $230,000 managing 1,000 victims. But if it's targeted and threat actor groups did their homework on the target, they could probably just have one victim a week or one victim in 2 weeks, but then get like $5 million in ransom or even more. So fewer victims to manage, and the pay is bigger, right? Less stress, less overhead. It's easier for them to just communicate with one victim that they think will pay them big bucks, instead of just spreading the ransomware around and getting like $300 per victim. And in the previous slide, we've talked about the communication. So they use email. That form of communication makes it discreet because it's only between the victim and the threat actor groups. And the advantage of that is without any link to any Tor site, although some of them still use it for communication purposes, but without that link, somebody that doesn't have access to those email communication will not have any idea of what's going on between the threat actor groups and the victims. Unlike if it's a opportunistic ransomware, wherein you can run that ransomware into a sandbox, get that ransom note, get that ransom page, click on it, and then you'll definitely know, oh yeah, this is the targets of this ransomware. They're asking for $200, etc., etc. So all of that information is known as long as you have the link to the Tor site. But with email communication, it's so discreet that only people that have access to the email communication are aware of what's going on. And it also opens the avenue for negotiation. Like victims can negotiate with the threat actor groups. There's going to be back and forth, of course, when it comes to email communication. And I think I've already mentioned this indirectly. Because of that, it's less likely to have the campaign exposed, right? Without the Tor link or without access to the email, it's only the victim and the threat actor groups know that they're engaging in negotiation because one of the systems or multiple systems of the victims have been compromised by ransomware. So before it was only like that. You encrypt, or the threat actor groups ransomware encrypt their system, and then they ask for money. But threat actor groups or ransomware threat actor groups quickly realize that not everybody's willing to pay, right? A target entity might have, hey, you know what, we have a robust backup system. We've thought about this. We have disaster recovery. We don't need to pay you any money. So they had to come up with something that would motivate the victims to pay. So they came up with extortion techniques. And the three most common techniques that they've been using so far is data exfiltration and exposure, data deletion and not selfies, and the threat of DDoS attacks. So last year, we've already seen a lot of data exfiltration and exposure, wherein different threat actor groups would post like, hey, you know what? This company has been victimized. They're not willing to pay. If you want to see a sample of their data, it's in this link. So all of that we've seen from last year. And of course, the data deletion and not selfies. They say, you know what? We have your data. Pay us money not to expose it. But if you want us to delete it from our servers and not sell them, pay us more. And just to add more to the headache of victims, they came up with the threat of a DDoS attack. Like, we have your data. If you're still not willing to pay, we'll cripple your systems by attacking them using multiple DDoS malware or DDoS botnets that they have access to attack that enterprise. So going into detail, this is an example of release of stolen data. This one is from Ragnar Locker. This is how they would present it. Company website, and then they would just have an example of the data that they've stolen. And then, of course, there's always a threat, like if you don't pay in this period of time, we'll release all the data to the public. And some of them, they don't release it for free. Some of them even have auctions, right? Because they understand if an entity has been targeted, they have ransomware in their system, and data has been exfiltrated before the deployment of ransomware. it's possible that other entities, especially competing entities, or even state-sponsored or companies that are not in the US that are interested in whatever intellectual property that's been stolen from that company, they're probably willing to pay a big amount of money. So this is one example that aside, before they want to just say, you know what, we'll expose your data. And the company will be liable for legal fees, uh, customer lawsuits, uh, customer notifications, restoration. So there's a lot of money involved when data is exposed, right? So we've known a lot of companies wherein they were hacked, data were exposed, and they had to pay restoration to customers, and I think they have to pay fines also for what happened, right? And that's one motivating factor when it comes to data exposure. But threat actor groups are thinking, hey, if they're not willing to pay, we'll just auction this. We'll have more money probably from the ransom we would have been getting. So let's go for it. So this is one example in this slide. But this is the question that always comes to mind, right? Even if entities or victims decide to pay ransom, this is always asked, how do we know that you will remove the data that you've collected from the victims in your server? Of course, the threat actor groups, they can say, yeah, we will delete it, but we're not sure yet, right? Because there's no way to audit that they would really delete it or not. One ransomware, AKO ransomware, I think they changed their name already this year. So they started charging for data deletion and not selfies. So if the entity decides to pay the ransom, they get their decryption tools, they decrypt their systems, data's back to normal, assuming there's no corruption in the decryption process. AKO ransomware went to the next level and say, you know what, pay us this money, pay us more, and we'll make sure we'll delete it from our servers and we will not sell it to the highest bidder. But then, of course, when they get the money, right, there's still no assurance that they would really delete or not sell the information that they captured. Because the only way you will see that they're really selling it actively is if they have an auction site, and that there you could really see, oh, they're really selling our information. But most of them, they don't have auction sites, right? It could be like an underground communication between an interested buyer and then the ransomware threat actor groups. And the threat of DDoS attack here, an affiliate can combine two services to get paid, RAS and the DDoS services. So when I say an affiliate, most of the ransomware that we see, it's ransomware as a service, wherein the ransomware threat actor groups, they have ransomware, but they don't have access to different infection vectors that would spread that ransomware to their targets. This is where the affiliates would come in. An affiliate is someone or a threat actor group that has access to different infection vectors. They might have access to stolen credentials. They might have access to spam mails. They might have access to different types of botnets. They might have access to vulnerabilities. So an affiliate is somebody that has access to a to an infection vector that has the ability to infect different targets. So that's what they have access to. And the cut, depending on their success, sometimes it's they get 60% of the ransom. If it's really, really good, it goes up to 70%. And they understand that for them to get that cut, they have to be paid, right? They have to get a payment for that one. So for them to get payment, they have to ensure that the victim is motivated enough to pay. This is where the threat of DDoS attack would come in. Some affiliates realize that DDoS service or signing up for a DDoS service is not that expensive, as you've seen in one of the advertisement that we've seen in the underground. You can see here 24 hours, $50, 7 days, $200, and 30 days is $800. So an affiliate can pay $800 and ask for ransom of, let's say, $3 million. So it basically pays for itself, right? So it's easy for them to combine those two services, ransomware as a service and DDoS services, to motivate the victim to pay ransom every time they're victimized by ransomware. So this is one communication between a victim and a threat actor group. So at the last graphic, it says, "I also need you to tell the boss or tech to stop attacking me because IT is costing money I don't have." And then they replied, "Okay, we will stop the DDoS attack in 4 hours as soon as the tech will be back online." And this is one form of communication between the threat actor groups and the different victims, or for this specific victim that had ransomware deployed in their system. So that's what we've seen in 2020, and this year we've seen something different. Darkside ransomware started offering discount and VIP status. So they would ask people that communicate on behalf of victims or even press to register on their website. And this is what they're saying that's advantage for those that would register. Automatic receiving of decryptors after payment. Users receive decryptors manually and during business hours get an additional discount. The discount increases depending on the number of payments. Communication with the support in a personal chat. So they're really treating ransomware as a service, as a business. And there's some chatter that we've seen wherein they refer to victims as customers or clients. I don't have a graphic here, but some threat actor groups, after victims provide them payment to get decryption tools, they would even provide them with tips on how to secure their system so that they won't get infected by ransomware again in the future. And this is the one for the press. For the press, you can ask questions and get information from the primary source, notifying you of data breaches before posting. So when they say notifying the press of data breaches before posting, a press that registered on their website would know first which company has been compromised before the ransomware threat actor groups post it on their blog or site, claiming that the company has been victimized, and the ability to receive non-public information. And they have even an SLA of 24 hours when it comes to replies. And this is what the requirement is: name, email, and then of course and then you register. So all those information, but then again, when you look at this, I think most of the ransomware threat actor groups realize that a lot of people are really interested when it comes to ransomware attacks, especially if the entity is big, right? So this is why they open this registration not only for negotiators, but also for the press, especially when it comes to people writing about cybersecurity. Having this kind of information before it breaks, the threat actor group's thinking is that they would want this information beforehand. And they're not doing this for the press, actually. They're doing it for themselves. Because the more there is written about a victim, the more shame that victim will feel and probably change their mind when it comes to paying ransom. So at the end of the day, regardless of the advances of different technologies that support the ransomware attack, different techniques that they employ, it boils down to one thing. The threat actor groups want to get paid. They can come up with different ways to motivate the victims to pay. They can come up with different technologies to evade different security solutions. They could come up with creative ways when it comes to affiliate programs. They could even have VIP status for negotiators and press. but all of that feed into one motivation, and that is for them to get paid. And that's what we have for today. That's what we've seen so far. That's what we've seen in 2020, and the latest one we've seen this year, and we're only like 2 weeks into the new year, right? So
That's incredible. That was so interesting. Thanks so much for that. It's I mean, it shows you how, you know, how it shows the level that people go to. I mean, you're talking about auctions, you know.
yeah.
And I didn't realize the term RAAS, the ransomware as a service, and that's unbelievable. All of these things. So, what's your prediction for ransomware this year?
So for 2021, my prediction there is that what we've seen in 2020 will continue.
Mm-hmm.
And So what I've shown in my presentation is one ransomware family has been doing the not selfies or deletion fees,
Mm-hmm.
and basing it from what we've seen in the past, uh, if something is successful for one ransomware family, other ransomware families would follow. So like before, we've seen Maze do the extortion techniques, and it was only Maze, and then different ransomware families followed, and AKO ransomware started the not selfies. So I'm seeing in 2021 there'll be more ransomware families that would follow suit, and uh, the jury is still out on the VIP status thing. If it proves to be successful for dark side ransomware, uh, other ransomware families might follow. So another thing to look out for is the different threats that would cripple operation of a company
Mm-hmm.
to motivate them to pay, like DDoS. That would increase. But I think DDoS threat actor groups, or those that have access to DDoS, they would realize that, hey, you're making a lot of money from my service, and I'm only charging you this amount of money. So chances are, when we see new ads when it comes to DDoS services, they might be more compared to what we've seen in my previous slides. And they might even change their tactics. Instead of giving a specific amount, they would be asking for percentage of money made from that attack.
Right.
Yeah, so those are the things that I predict would happen in 2021.
Cool. What about, so Flashpoint? You guys do also, you do insider threats, right? Insider threats. So
Yeah. So we have a department that provides professional services
Mhm.
to our customers. So that's one thing that Flashpoint provides, aside from actionable intelligence that's available through our platform and through different integrations that use the Flashpoint data.
Okay. The other thing I was going to ask you is, I know that you've got a couple of books out there as well, with rootkits and malware. Is the rootkits, is that completely platform agnostic? So the rootkits can be put easily on Linux and Mac and Windows. Is that all the same? It doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Yeah. So Uh, it- thank you for mentioning my book. I really appreciate it, and that's one of the major topics that I have on my books.
Mhm.
So the way I see rootkits, rootkit is a technology. Uh, I see it as a technology that has been abused by malware. It just so happened that malware that has rootkit technology, or utilized some form of rootkit technology, uh, have been called rootkits, when in fact, when you on the strictest term of the word, when you say rootkits, it's a collection of tools that enables you to manage an operating system. So there are different types of rootkits for different platforms. For example, for Windows, different from what we have in Linux or iOS. Uh, But the thing is that if a malware has been created for a specific platform and if it wants to hide from that platform or subvert that platform, it would utilize rootkit technologies that are specifically written for that platform.
Mm. Would you do you have any this might be sort of putting you on the spot, right? But what advice do you have for somebody who gets what advice do you have for somebody who is a victim of ransomware? I mean, it's difficult to answer, I know, but is your advice like just pay these guys and hope for the best, or are you of the opinion just don't pay? Do you have an opinion?
Oh yeah, so that's really a very good question. Of course, before you become a victim, right? You should increase your security posture. But
Absolutely.
then, of course, we know that malware would always get into the system, especially if they're using stolen credentials, right? A stolen credential is like a golden key that you could turn, and then you're already inside the system. Because the system would interpret that as somebody that's authorized to access the system. Now, if you're victimized by a ransomware, that's the question the organization has to answer for itself, right? Will I pay or will I not pay? And my stand on that, I actually wrote a blog about it. It's in our website in flashpoint-intel.com. Anyway, the summary of that is it's a business decision.
Mm.
Uh, because some people might advise them not to pay because this, and that, or pay because this, and that. But people that are advising these victims, they probably don't have a first-hand view of what that victim really needs or what that victim values. So whether to pay that ransom or not to pay that ransom, it has to be made by the victim itself. And the way I term it, it's a business decision
Mm.
that they have to make. If they decide to pay and they need a professional to help them, to help guide them through the whole process, uh, uh, Flashpoint has professional services. Uh, if they decide not to pay, then that's also a business decision. If that's the business decision they made, then they have to prepare themselves from repercussions that the threat actor groups are threatening them with. So it's really a business decision for the victim.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I guess prevention is always better than the cure, right?
Yep. And the good thing about like for us, the professional services in Flashpoint, we provide advices and also, of course, actionable intelligence before you get infected by ransomware.
Yeah.
And the advice I would say to different entities is that they have to have a different playbook when it comes to ransomware.
Mm-hmm.
Most incident responders, they have playbook on how to deal with malware infections, how to deal with this type of attack. But when it comes to ransomware, it's totally different because it doesn't hide itself. Once it's in your system, it would really advertise, "Hey, I'm here. Pay me," and everything will be back to normal. And this is where everything comes in. DLP solutions, because before a ransomware is deployed in your system, chances are the threat actor groups have been there for a long time, giving them enough time to exfiltrate the data from that system before deploying ransomware and locking the system.
Mm-hmm.
And they also the companies or the potential targets also need to have a robust backup system. But
Mm.
of course, backup will only solve their problem of like restoring data, right? But it will not solve the problem of data already exposed and in the hands of the threat actor groups.
Yeah,
And that's a
exactly.
different challenge altogether because there might be legal ramifications when it comes to those things. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, my advice to different entities, they need to have, oh, to potential victims, they need to have all of these covered: backup, legal ramifications, strengthening of the security of their security posture, uh, all of those things. and a different playbook when it comes to incident responders dealing with a potential ransomware attack.
Really fascinating stuff. Christopher, thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you so much.
Henry, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present. I'm really honored and happy to know that I'm the first one for 2021.
Yes.
Hopefully this is a good start for everybody. 2020 has been a challenge, and I look forward to a better 2021.
Fantastic. Thanks again. Bye-bye, Chris. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Henry.
Bye-bye.